It was the first week of September, and the morning air was cool and sharp in the small town of Maplewood, Illinois. Students hurried toward Lincoln High School, laughing, shouting, and talking about summer vacations. But one boy walked more quietly than the rest. His name was Eli Johnson, a 15-year-old freshman. He was tall for his age, soft-spoken, with warm brown eyes that always seemed to be watching rather than speaking. His backpack was old, his shoes scuffed, and his uniform hung a little loose, but he walked with quiet confidence. His mother had ironed his shirt that morning until it was perfect. Before leaving home, she had said to him, "Be yourself, Eli. Let your actions speak louder than their words." Eli smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and whispered, "I will, Mom." Inside the school, everything felt new faces, new hallways, and the nervous energy that came with starting fresh. But there was also that silent tension Eli could already feel, the kind that makes you aware of how you look before you even speak. He walked into room 214, English Literature, his first class of the day. Behind the desk sat Mr. Collins, a middle-aged white man with a gray vest and a habit of adjusting his glasses every few minutes. He was known for being strict but funny. Most students liked him, though a few thought his jokes went too far. Eli chose a seat near the front, wanting to start strong in this new school. Mr. Collins looked up from his attendance sheet. "Front row, huh?" he said with a smirk. "Confident choice. Usually the ones who sit up front are either geniuses or troublemakers. Let's hope you're the first one." A few students laughed. Eli smiled politely and said, "Yes, sir." Mr. Collins nodded without much warmth and went back to calling names. The first week over the next few days, Eli did what he always did. He worked hard. He turned in his homework early, answered questions when called on, and stayed quiet otherwise. But slowly he began to notice that no matter what he did, Mr. Collins treated him differently. When another student answered incorrectly, Mr. Collins would laugh and say, "Close, but not quite." When Eli did, he sighed and said, "Let's try not to guess next time." If Eli raised his hand, Mr. Collins often skipped him and called on someone else. When Eli's essays were returned, they had fewer marks but lower grades. At first, Eli thought maybe he was imagining it. But one afternoon, when he stayed behind after class to ask for help on an assignment, the truth became harder to ignore. "Mr. Collins," Eli began, "I was wondering how I could improve my essay writing." Mr. Collins didn't look up from his papers. "Well, for starters, try writing in proper English. Keep it formal, less street language." Eli frowned slightly. "Sir, I used the format from the sample you gave." Mr. Collins chuckled, shaking his head. "It's fine, Eli. Some habits just take longer to fix." The words hit harder than Eli expected. He thanked the teacher softly and left the room, but something in him changed that day. The writing assignment a week later, Mr. Collins gave a new essay topic. "The person who inspires you the most." It was a simple prompt, but Eli's mind immediately went to his father. His father, Commander David Johnson, had served in the Navy for over 20 years. He was a man of discipline and integrity who believed in humility and respect above everything else. To Eli, he wasn't just a soldier. He was a man who had taught him that courage wasn't always about battles. Sometimes, it was about staying calm when people underestimated you. That night, Eli wrote until midnight. He described how his father treated everyone, from fellow officers to janitors, with equal respect. He wrote how his dad told him, "You can't control how people see you, but you can control how you make them remember you." And he ended it with a line that made him proud. "My father taught me that strength is not in how loud you speak, but in how long you stand tall." Eli read it 3 times before stapling it neatly and placing it in his backpack. The humiliation when the essays were returned, Mr. Collins handed Eli's paper back without a word. The grade on top read, C-. Eli flipped through the pages. There were no notes, no red marks, just one comment written at the bottom. "You need to work on your language. This isn't street talk." Eli stared at it, stunned. The paper had perfect spelling, clear grammar, and heartfelt emotion. He had checked it again and again. A student sitting nearby whispered, "Man, that's messed up." Mr. Collins looked up sharply. "Is there a problem, Mr. Johnson?" Eli swallowed hard. "No, sir." The teacher smiled thinly. "Good. Let's keep it that way." That afternoon, when Eli got home, his mother noticed his quiet mood. "What happened, sweetheart?" she asked. He hesitated. "Mom, how come some people treat you like you're less than them before they even know you?" His mother set down her mug of coffee and said gently, "Because they see the color before they see the person. But you have to keep showing them who you really are. Never forget your worth, Eli." He nodded slowly. "Dad wouldn't let someone talk to him like that." She smiled sadly. No, but he'd still keep his head high. That's real strength. The turning point a few days later, Eli's father returned home unexpectedly from deployment. His uniform still crisp, medals shining faintly under the porch light. When he hugged Eli, it felt like safety. Over dinner, Eli told him about school, about Mr. Collins, and about the essay. He hesitated before reading the teacher's comment aloud. Commander Johnson listened quietly. His face remained calm, but his eyes grew more serious. He asked one question, "What do you want me to do, son?" Eli shook his head. "Nothing, Dad, I just wanted you to know." But his father did not forget. The meeting that Friday, Commander Johnson called the school to schedule a meeting with the principal. He arrived at Lincoln High the following Monday morning, still in uniform. His posture was sharp, his presence commanding, but his voice remained calm. When he entered the principal's office, Mr. Collins was already there, waiting. He looked up and his face drained of color. The principal stood quickly. "Commander Johnson, thank you for coming. Please have a seat," Mr. Collins stammered. "Commander as in Eli's father?" Commander Johnson nodded slightly. "Yes, that's right," the principal cleared her throat. "Mr. Collins, Commander Johnson wanted to discuss an issue regarding his son's experience in your class." The teacher shifted uncomfortably. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. I treat all my students fairly." Commander Johnson raised his hand gently. "I'm not here to argue, sir. I just want to understand how a young man who writes from his heart can be told that his words sound like street talk." Mr. Collins opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. "I've led men in war," Commander Johnson continued, voice steady. "And I've seen courage in many forms, but I've also seen how quiet injustice can break a person before anything else does. My son deserves a fair chance to be heard, just like anyone else." The room fell silent. The principal looked down at the report Eli had written. She had read it herself that morning. It was flawless. "Mr. Collins," she said softly, "I think you owe both Eli and his father an apology." The teacher looked from her to Commander Johnson. His throat tightened. "You're right," he whispered. "You're absolutely right." The redemption the next day, when the first period bell rang, Mr. Collins walked into class slower than usual. He placed his books on the desk, looked around at the faces of his students, and then his eyes landed on Eli. "Class," he began, voice trembling slightly, "I need to say something." Everyone went silent. "I said some things last week that were wrong, things that came from assumption, not understanding. I want to apologize to Eli and to all of you for setting the wrong example." He turned toward Eli. "You wrote about your father. I finally read your essay last night. It was beautiful. You have a gift, Eli. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Eli blinked, unsure what to say. "Thank you, sir." Mr. Collins nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I think I just learned more from my students than they'll ever learn from me." That moment changed the room. The laughter and whispers that once followed Eli disappeared. He became one of the most respected students in school, not because his father was a decorated soldier, but because he carried himself with quiet strength. The moral: a few months later, Eli won the state essay competition. His piece was titled, "Respect Should Never Depend on Color." It was published in the local newspaper, and when Mr. Collins read it, tears filled his eyes. He clipped the article and kept it on his desk until the day he retired. Sometimes the lesson isn't written on the board. Sometimes it walks quietly into the room, sits in the front row, and teaches everyone what real respect looks like.